Hey, what's up guys? It's Matt with the Movement System. I'm a physical therapist and strength coach, and I'm here with Dr. Zach Givzal, who's also a physical therapist and strength and conditioning coach. And today we're going to talk about conditioning for cricket. Cricket is a unique sport because it has a combination of power, but also speed, endurance, and anaerobic capacity. So there's some specific things that you can do to specifically improve your conditioning to get the best amount of runs and conditioning to perform well for the entirety of a cricket match.
And the other thing you have to understand with conditioning when it comes to cricket is not just about conditioning of energy systems like the anaerobic system, ATP system. We have to also condition the body's tissues to be able to handle the load that cricket brings on. Whether it's the shoulder during bowling, or whether it's the hips or low back during batting, we have to understand that the body is undergoing these loads, and tissue tolerance and tissue conditioning improves in a different way than maybe some of the energy system conditioning that we can do in a program that you can build. So with the strength work that can build up, it's a different kind of conditioning, but still conditioning nonetheless.
Yeah, so what we want to talk about to start off is that conditioning is not the same as endurance. So going out and just running for miles and miles to build your endurance isn't necessarily going to translate to improving your cricket performance. Instead, because cricket is more anaerobic based and more power based, when we're doing conditioning, we want to make it specific either to a muscle group or specific to the energy system that you're going to be using in cricket. So for example, if the most that a play is going to last is around maybe 30 seconds or less, then we might want to build up with anaerobic conditioning around a minute. So doing something like interval training where you're working for work bouts that are up to a minute long may make sense, but it probably doesn't make the most sense to be doing really long efforts like miles of running, for example.
Yeah, and understanding that those anaerobic capacities are really, really important to build during the cricket match. And then you also have to understand that, cricket matches can sometimes last 4 or 5 days. Mm-hmm. So you also have to be ready to recover after that match and be able to perform the next day as well. So usually we've seen with athletes with better conditioning can not only perform better during the game, but they can recover better after the game and be ready to perform by the next day.
And be more consistent day to day. Because if your recovery is not there and you can't, for example, go from one game to the next game and then also from one workout to the next workout and recover between that and give a good effort each time that you're going to put in work, then it's going to be really hard for you to hit your best performance.
And when we're talking about conditioning and bringing it into your own programming, you have to also understand that there are ways to do high impact conditioning and low impact conditioning. So on days that you maybe want a little bit lower volume, a little bit lower workload on the body, you can really tax different anaerobic capacities of the body by doing low impact variations of a rower, of an elliptical, of a bike, of a treadmill. But on days that you want to do more cricket specific, that's in the days that you go to the field and you do more sprint work, more jump work, more work that's going to actually put the impact of your body you're going to get during the cricket match. But you want to be able to periodize those things, whether it's because you're close to a game or in season, or just because you've already had a hard day of training the day before. There's many ways to improve your conditioning that don't tax the body as a whole and can pick out specific areas of the body more. If you want to work on more cardiovascular conditioning, then there's obviously ways we can work on that in low impact ways.
Yeah, so let's just use that as an example and give you a direct example of this. So let's just say you want a low impact option for cricket conditioning, and you want to work your anaerobic system, but also not to the point that you're fatiguing yourself because, again, we were low impact, we're close to the game, and we don't want to build fatigue. An example of how we might do that is to choose a low impact exercise if you have access to a row ergometer or an elliptical, or even something like an incline walk that we can do an incline jog. Those are all examples of what we might, a modality that we might choose. And then we also have to think about timing and what energy system we're developing. So an example of how we might do that is 1 minute on, where we're working at a high intensity but not all out, and then about 3 minutes of recovery between those higher effort work bouts. That recovery could be passive recovery where we're just standing or sitting, or it could be active recovery where we're walking just for a little bit of blood flow. I tend to recommend walking but not jogging between those higher effort bouts of conditioning.
And when we're talking about the lower impact versus higher impact, the other part of the body we have to look at is the tendons. The tendons are going to take a lot more load during the high impact. It's not saying you shouldn't be using high impact, because you need that in your program to be conditioned, but we have to spare those sometimes when we're getting closer to the game, or if our workload is or our program's at a position where we've already taxed the tendinous areas the day before. So a way to kind of look at that is if you look at an exercise, say like a box jump that you're doing. If you're doing a box jump and we're jumping up onto the box, say we jump on a 24-inch box, if we're jumping 24 inches and we're landing on a 24-inch box, we're not really taking any impact. So we're able to work on that anaerobic capacity and work explosive power without really taking the impact after. Now, if I just jump straight up into the air as a vertical jump, 24 inches, now I take 24 inches of landing force, now that's high impact. And those are things that, we do need to add in, but we need to be mindful of. Why are we putting a box in our way? Is it to reduce the impact, or just because I've seen it somewhere online, right? So being educated on what a high impact versus low impact is, even with the same exercise like a vertical jump, can really help improve your training.
Yeah, so some things that we've worked into our cricket strength conditioning program, which we'll link in the description below if you're interested in checking it out, are specific plyometrics to develop max force, but we're not using high impact plyometrics as conditioning typically. So if we're doing something like a tuck jump or a depth jump, we're gonna really limit the number of reps and make sure that each one of those repetitions is very explosive and very really all out, and then we're going to get the max benefit from that being a plyometric, and then we'll choose other exercises for conditioning, for example shuttle runs, or some of the other conditioning that we've been talking about.
And there are plyometric exercises in there that are lower impact that we can use for conditioning. We have skipping drills or hopping drills or things like that we've added into the program that we know aren't going to be very taxing on the bones, on the tendons, on the joints, and that you can do and work your heart rate up a little bit higher while still getting a plyometric effect and not really declining your performance for the next couple days.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about figuring out the balance and figuring out which exercise serves as a good conditioning drill and which exercise serves better as a pure plyometric and max power drill. So if you're interested in checking out our full cricket program, you can click the link in the description below to the full 12-week program. That's going to have a base hypertrophy phase, a power strength phase, and also a power speed phase to specifically develop your cricket performance. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we will catch you in the next one.